Tlingit and Haida peoples who have lived in the region for millennia. A flaked stone spear point had been found and reported to the island archaeologist Terry Fifield a week before, but it was assumed to be just a single isolated find. When the human mandible was found, however, Heaton immediately knew that there was much more to the site than previously expected. He stopped excavations and radioed Forest Service law enforcement to report it. The next morning, Fifield flew to the site by helicopter to assess the situation. Following the stipulations of the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, NAGPRA, Fifield brought the man's remains back to the Forest Service and called the presidents of the Clawak and Craig tribal councils the next day to notify them of the discovery. Over the following week, aided by the NAGPRA specialist at the Central Council of the Tlingit and Haida Indian Tribes of Alaska, CCTHTA, Fifield and tribal leaders set up a consultation session hosted by the Clawak tribe and invited 5 Tlingit and Haida tribes to help decide what should be done next. The initial reaction from the communities was mixed. Some were reluctant to disturb the human bones any further, but other community members wanted to learn what information the ancient man could reveal about the history of the people in the region. As I remember those initial talks, Terry Fifield told me in an email, council members wondered who this person might be, whether he was related to them, how he might have lived. It was that curiosity about the man that inspired the partnership at the beginning. After much discussion and debate, community members eventually agreed that the scientists could continue their dig and study the ancient remains. They stipulated that excavations would immediately cease if the cave turned out to be a sacred burial site. They also mandated that the scientists were to share their findings with them before they were published and consult with community leaders on all steps taken during the research, and the community members would rebury their ancestor following the work. The scientists involved agreed to all of these stipulations and updated the tribes regularly on their findings as the work progressed. Terry Fifield attended tribal council meetings and sought permission from the council whenever a journalist or filmmaker wanted to do a story on the site. Archaeologist E. James Dixon from the Denver Museum of Natural History developed a National Science Foundation-funded research project to excavate the cave, which also funded internships for tribal citizens to participate directly in the excavations. In subsequent years, Sealaska Corporation, the Alaska Native Regional Corporation for the area, provided additional funding for internships to students working with the project. This partnership between community members, archaeologists, and the Forest Service was fruitful. Over 5 seasons of archaeological fieldwork, 7 human bones and 2 human teeth were recovered from inside the cave. All belonged to a single man. His bones were scattered and damaged by carnivores and were distributed across approximately 50 feet of a passage in sediments that had been churned up by water from a small spring. It was clear to archaeologists and community members alike that this was not the site of a deliberate burial. Excavating his remains would not only help people learn more about the past, but it would also allow the communities to provide him with a respectful burial. Archaeologists were able to determine from the shape of the man's pelvis and teeth that he had been in his early 20s when he died. A chemical analysis of his teeth revealed that he had grown up on a diet of seafood. Artifacts at the site suggested that he, or someone else who had left them in the cave, engaged in long-distance trade of high-quality stone, which was used to make tools that were specially designed for hunting in the challenging Arctic environment. Radiocarbon dates from his bones revealed something astonishing. He was over 10,000 years old. These remains were from one of the oldest people in Alaska. The Tlingit maintained that their ancestors were a seafaring people who had lived in this region since the dawn of history. The discovery of this man, whom the Tlingit called Shukaka, man ahead of us, was consistent with oral histories that they descend from an ancient, coastally adapted people who engaged in long-distance trade. As the project progressed, the idea that this man could be their ancestor or at least lived in ways similar to those of their ancestors.